Howdy, my name is Amy Borgens, and I'm the State Marine Archaeologist at the Texas Historical Commission. I'm presenting a talk on the role of location in the preservation of historic wooden shipwrecks. Our perception of historic shipwrecks is often influenced by how we see them presented in books, movies, and video games. These are often as idolized forms, proudly upright and rather haunted in appearance, with their masts still standing. But is this accurate? Is this how they truly appear? The answer is not so simple, as it depends on the location of the shipwreck. Factors such as water salinity have a role. Is it in a marine environment or a freshwater body, such as the Great Lakes? Is the water cold, or is it warmer, such as in the Gulf of Mexico and Caribbean? Water depths can also play a major role, as these depths can protect archaeological sites not only from storms, but also human intervention that can seriously damage them. Importantly, the collective factors highlighted here determine if the underwater environment hosts the largest culprit in the degradation of wooden shipwrecks. The Teredo nivalis, a wood-boring mollusk that lives in warmer saltwater and brackish water sources. This shipwreck, as they are often known, consume wooden underwater objects, including shipwrecks and their artifacts. For the remainder of the talk, I will introduce different types of shipwrecks and their preservation and how this is impacted by the places they are found. Some of the most famous and well-known preserved shipwrecks in North America are found in the Great Lakes, such as the USS Hamilton and Scourge, both of which sank during a storm in Lake Ontario in 1813. The depth of these shipwrecks and the freshwater environment has resulted in fantastic preservation, with both vessels upright with their masts still standing. The discovery of these shipwrecks in 1973 created a sensation at the time, even intriguing famous underwater explorer Jacques Cousteau, who visited the sites. Though freshwater locations can result in great preservation, similar archaeological sites and rivers are affected by other influences that can lead to their demise. In Texas and Louisiana, there are a collection of more than 30 wooden World War I era Emergency Fleet Corporation steamship hulls that were abandoned in the Neches and Sabine rivers when the war ended. For shipwrecks such as these, their low water depths and greater accessibility can lead to historic and modern salvage. The environment greatly affects these wrecks as they can be dismantled by river currents and literally grow into the neighboring landscape. The portions underwater can still be very intact, as indicated by the sonar image. Many of these EFC vessels are preserved for about 260 feet of their 280-foot construction length. These vessels can also become buried if the river meanders, and a famous example of such a shipwreck in the United States is the steamboat Arabia. Arabia sank in the Missouri River in 1856. The river would change course and bury the wreck, where it was later discovered under land in 1988. The remains of the vessel were removed with the artifacts forming an amazing exhibit at the Arabia Steamboat Museum in Kansas City, Missouri. This is an amazing example of artifact preservation for archaeological sites in fresh water. Saltwater shipwrecks are typically less well preserved, with the exception being those in cold water, as the Teredo nivalis does not live in such regions. Unique and excellent examples of these frozen wonders are the HMS Erebus and Terror, both part of St. John Franklin's expedition of 1845. They were discovered by Parks Canada in 2014 and 2016. Other fantastic examples of these cold water archaeological sites include the 16th and 17th century Swedish warships Mars and Vasa, both of which were lost in the Baltic Sea. Vasa was raised in 1959 and is the focus of an extraordinary exhibit at the Vasa Museum in Stockholm, Sweden. Another well-known collection of shipwrecks are the abandoned hulks in the Falkland Islands at Stanley Harbor. Vessels rounding the Cape were often damaged beyond repair and were left at Stanley and used as floating wharves. These have survived for more than 100 years, but have eventually degraded, largely due to weather and other elements. Some have been removed as the harbor itself developed over the years. Jalem is considered the most well-known of this collection and is similarly broken down over time. These images show how the vessel has degraded since 1975. It is in the warmer marine bays and oceans where the shipworm causes the greatest damage. The 17th century vessel La Belle, which was part of La Salle's 1684 expedition to the Gulf Coast, is such an example. It was discovered by the Texas Historical Commission underwater, buried under sediment in Matagorda Bay, Texas in 1995. The exposed portions were either damaged by the weather or environment or consumed by the shipworm. Only the lower third of the hull and its contents, more than 1.8 million artifacts, survived. The shipwreck and artifacts were excavated in 1996 and 97 and are on exhibit at the Bullock Texas State History Museum in Austin, Texas. Many sites become completely consumed, such as the wreckage of the USS Westfield that sank in Galveston Bay during the Civil War on January 1st, 1863. Natural systems had over time scoured and lowered the vessel more than 20 feet deeper in the bay, constantly exposing the wooden hull and artifacts. None of the hull survived. The largest portion is pictured in the upper right of the screen. For such wrecks, where there are many examples in Texas, the main surviving portions of the hull are the metal fasteners that held them together. And lastly, some of the most vulnerable underwater archaeological sites are the ships that have wrecked on the beach. This vessel, Merrimack, that ran aground in 1999, was fully buried within 3 days. By 6 weeks, it was completely destroyed. Though Texas beaches are less dynamic, there are several historic shipwrecks in these coastal areas, such as the late 19th century scow schooner Lake Austin and an unknown sailing vessel at the South Texas coast, Site 41CF-125. Because of the oxygen-free anaerobic environment, these vessels can be very well preserved. However, they can become uncovered after storms and be underwater at high tide, exposing them to tornado consumption. With beach erosion, these are advancing towards the sea, becoming completely inundated. The combination of the tornado and waves can completely destroy what remains. This can be partly observed with Site 41CF-184, which was documented over a 10-year period during instances it was uncovered. One can see it gradually waste away. Such shipwrecks on tourist beaches are also subject to unlawful salvage and artifact recovery, with beachcombers collecting souvenirs, perhaps unaware that this is against Texas state law. Today, I've taken you on an abridged world tour of many fascinating wreck sites to illustrate how location can affect a shipwreck's preservation. There are many more to learn about that can be found through reading and surfing the internet. I thank you for your time, and I encourage you to learn more about these amazing shipwrecks.